I'm back with another hit. Funky Fresh. No, I'm just kidding. Um, ISFP relationships after God. So let me talk about my relationship before God. First off, I don't know if this is like an ISFP thing where we just got issues with relationships in general, or if it's just one of those generational curses that are passed down. Because I look at my mom, who is an ISFJ, and she had man issues. And I look at my grandma, who I have no idea what her type was, but she had man issues. Like, she was married to, I want either two or three different men. I'm not sure. It seemed different though. Like she was a battle axe, I guess, from what I remember, because she died when I was like 11, and I didn't know her that well, and I didn't like her that well either, because I always thought she was very mean. Like, she would make me do the dishes, even though my brother didn't do anything, and she would never force him to do anything. And I was just like, well, that's unfair. So I was like a little feminist from the beginning. Um, but she had man issues, my mom did, and I'm like, I did too. So my relationships before God, as far as romantic relationships, like, it was very difficult for me to even understand what a good guy was. I would choose these men usually based on their looks and based on their how fun they were, and then also just if they were giving me attention. Like, I dated men for their money for a little bit, because I'm like, well, I'm kind of cute, so I can use them, and that's how I'll get my extra food and extra clothing and that kind of thing. Um, which I definitely would say that might be something that runs in the lineage. And so, yeah, I started to develop the mindset that men were only good for money, and that's the extent of it. But I would like never sleep with these men either. I would usually just like use them for as long as I could use them, and then I would be like, deuces, um, because I'm not sleeping with you, basically. And I think that was probably God protecting me, because if, when you open yourself up like that to someone, you're really asking for it. So I really suggest no women to do that at all. Um, but yeah, boyfriends that I had, like my first one, I think, I think he was probably an ISFJ, but a very unhealthy one. And so he was very jealous all the time. He was weird. Like, he would always stare at my friend, who I think was an ISFP, and she would like flirt with him too. But he'd be like, well, I don't want you to turn 21, because you're going to go out to the club and then you're going to leave me for someone else. And I'd be like, look, I want to go out to the club. Like, I want to dance in the bars. Because what do you do when you're 21? I guess you dance in the bar. But yeah, he was jealous like that. And then I think I had turned 21, and he had promised to go to the club with me. And he basically, like, no, this is what happened. He was laying down in the bed, and I had shook him and was like, you promised to go to the club with me. And he, like, basically pushed me away. Like, he was kind of abusive like that. He was like, no, no. He was very insecure, and it showed. So that was my first boyfriend. And then my second one was he was an ENFP, and I just didn't get it. Like, I did not get it at the time. He was just like so happy to see me all the time. And so it shows how silly I was. He was so happy to see me all the time, and he'd be like, what do you want to do? What do you want to eat? Like, he was always excited all the time. Dude was like 250 pounds and like 6'5" or something like that. Just like huge and healthy and like excited all the time. And I just didn't get it. I didn't understand why he was just so happy to be around me. But you know what? He also had this issue of looking at other women. And I remember going to this party with him, and there was a woman there, and she's dressed in all this pinup get up. And I'm pretty sure she was an INFJ, and they're just like hitting it off, and he was doing it right in front of me. And I was just like, this, I don't think this is really right. And so I was just like, how can you be so happy to see me, but then be super flirty with these other women? And I think it's just because I wasn't giving him what he wanted type deal. But yeah, he would say things like, we're going to have this many kids, and, I'm going to be able to flirt with women while we're married. And I was like, no, bro, like, it's not happening like that. Um, so yeah, I ended up like lightweight cheating on him with an INTJ. I want to say, I mean, I didn't sleep with this guy, but we definitely kissed. And I definitely loved being around the INTJ more than I did the ENFP. It's just so bad, but he was just so beautiful. He was like half Lebanese, half Colombian or something like that. And I just loved like having these conversations with him, like these deep conversations with him. They were so wonderful. I just loved his mind and everything. But my morality started to kick in, and so I was like, ooh, I can't be really cheating on my boyfriend with someone else. Um, and what ended up happening with the INTJ is I think he really was like in love with this INFJ girl. See, my men always getting stolen by INFJs. But anyway, and so I think he really wanted to date her. And so I was like, oh, that's fine. Like, I have a boyfriend. I shouldn't be even talking to you. But, at the time it was fun, our little 5-day fling that we had together. And then the third boyfriend, I I'm not sure what he was. Maybe a demon. He would always say things like, I don't believe in God. And at that point I wasn't a Christian really. I mean, I had Christian friends, but I didn't understand Christ. And I had no relationship with God. And I couldn't understand why he kept saying those things. And looking back on it, I'm like, oh, because we were chosen from the foundations of the world, and I had some kind of light in me, and so that darkness in him was just like enemy to it. But this guy was probably the worst boyfriend I've ever had. Probably would be the worst boyfriend for most people. In fact, his ex-girlfriend, he cheated on her with not only women, but with men. And so, no telling, probably the same thing happened to me and I didn't know it. But this guy, he would constantly, like, look at other women. He would, like, hit on my friends. He would hit on his own friend's girlfriend. I don't know if that was something they were into as a group, but it was definitely something that he was doing behind their backs. And I remember going camping, and his friend's girlfriend's name was Starla, and she was a Christian, and she was a doll face. Like back then, I was like, oh, she's flirty type deal. I don't like it. But looking back on it, it's like, no, she had the light of God, and she was trying to like spread that type deal. And so he was like hitting on her, and I remember sleeping in my tent when we went camping, and I was there the whole time by myself, and I could hear him and her together, and I think he was probably trying to get with her. And I heard her say, your girlfriend's in the tent, what are you doing? And so probably 20 minutes later he came over, and that was the night that I decided, like, I'm done. Like, like the next morning we had a conversation about what had happened, and I had said, look, I think you like your friend's girlfriend, your friend's, yeah. And so I was like, I don't really want to put up with this anymore. And he started crying. And I'm laughing because it was the fakest cry ever. It was so fake. I had to be like, look, I'm done. You can cry if you want to, I'm done. And he like zipped it right up. He stopped his fake cry. I was like, deuces. All right, done. And then I remember going into his apartment, and maybe he was trying to talk me out of it or whatever. And I just rolled over and went to sleep, and I woke up and I basically had another conversation, and I was like, I love you, but I don't want this anymore. And then he goes, I don't love you, and I just wanted sex. And I was like, okay, that's fine. If you feel like you need to say that, all right, then bye. And I was done after that. And then I ended up getting this job doing marketing, and then I saw him at the bar, and we both ignored each other, and it was good. So yeah, pretty horrific relationships, romantic relationships. And then as far as friendships, I didn't know how to pick friends that well either. I mean, either friends would end up being jealous, they would end up trying to get with a man that I was interested in, because I have this thing where I like want to help people, and I don't want to say fix people, not like INFJ fix, but like gently coax them into doing the right way. Never worked. People just wanted to be themselves, quote unquote, and be individualistic and whatever they wanted. And I would always attract those types of people, whether it was friends or relationships. Because, I guess you could say I'm a empath. And so empaths honestly often attract narcissists. So yeah, I attracted a lot of narcissists. Yeah, so I have friends that were like that, people that would just use and take advantage of me, and I would like keep letting them back into my life. So fast forward after God, I had said in my other video that, the Lord almost gave me like this switch where I was able to recognize a really poor man from a distance. Like it was like X-ray vision. I see right through you. It's not going down type deal. So, and I still have that. It's sometimes you go in and out, of course, because you don't want to believe something, or you're tired, or you're just like unclean on the inside, and so your discernment's kind of off. Sometimes I find when I'm not feeling well, I'll start looking at men because of their looks and that kind of thing. And truly, it's a little bit of a belittling thing, because you're only looking at that person for their looks. So that's something that's changed with me, where I'm trying very hard not to look at the outward appearance of people and to look at their inward man type deal. So right now, my relationships with men has seemed to change a little bit. I mean, when you're in this walk, it's not like, get it from who you can get it from type deal. It's like you're more aware, and you have like, I want to say, higher standards of what you're looking for. And you also make sure that that other person is looking for similar things. And it's also true that your giftings in this walk have to match the giftings of your partner. So for me, I've got somewhat of a gifting of teaching. The Lord's still working that out, because I can learn a lot in a little time and get frustrated when other people don't understand. And so he's working out the patience aspect, because we kind of have to look at everyone as children, and we have to meet them, at their own level. So he's trying to help me understand that. And then I've definitely got a prophetic gifting, and I'm like a watchwoman. I'm called to be a watchwoman, which is basically the female version of the watchman. And so I'm looking at the times and when the Lord's going to return, and if the devil is trying to do some crazy stuff, I'm looking at that. So a watchman or watchwoman is basically a type of prophetess who's like your security type deal. They're the people that are guarding the camp and making sure the enemy doesn't get in. And believe me, I do that. And so sometimes with Christians, this will upset them, because they think I'm being judgmental, or they think that I'm being harsh and that kind of thing. And a lot of them don't have strong discernment. They can literally end up being like a sheep led to the slaughter because their lack of discernment. And so that's one of my giftings. And so I feel like sometimes I have to watch for them because they won't do it themselves. It sounds really bad, but that's really how I feel sometimes. And so I need a man that has similar giftings, that's going to understand where I'm coming from, that we're going to work together, and do this thing for the Lord, that we're going to bring his kingdom down. Because if I were to get with one of these maybe evangelistic Christians that don't have that discernment, and I don't want to say that, okay, because not every evangelist doesn't have discernment, but in these evangelical churches, in these like modern, like Hillsong type churches, they're heavily focused on evangelism and heavily focused on love to the point where they can take it to a fault type deal, and they don't exercise the other giftings. I would probably struggle with that, having a man that is in one of those churches, because we're just not going to understand each other. I'm going to strive to understand him. What I've noticed is that hasn't been reciprocated, and so we just probably wouldn't do well together, but we can still love each other. So that's one thing that has changed after God. That's good. Like, I have standards where I didn't have them before. And that's not to say like, oh, look at me, my standards are so high, you can't reach them. No, it's saying these are the things that are necessary for this relationship to work. It might be a little different for a different believer, because they have different giftings, but they're still the same level type deal. I don't consider myself better than anyone else. But yeah, that's something that has changed. Obviously, I don't want to go after a lot of unbelievers because it's just too much work. I'm sorry. It's a messy thing with unbelievers. Like, it's just so messy, and I don't understand, but I should, because I was in that spot too. But yeah, I'm not going after the one night stands and the clubbing and the drinking and the smoking weed. And, you're dealing with this baggage from your ex-girlfriend and that kind of stuff. Because when you're a non-believer, you still need healing on the inside, and you're not receiving that healing usually because you're not shacked up with God. And so I look at that and I'm like, no, it's not happening. Where before I would have had some kind of pity on them and would have been like, all right, well, we can try it. Not happening again. But as far as friends, I have not a lot of them. The ones that I do have, I consider them people that are really trying to follow after the Lord, and they really seek to do the Lord's will and to be decent people for him. I have run into believers that, they're still kind of flirty and they're trying to get with men that I like and that kind of thing. Where before I said, oh, well, I'll just forgive you and we can go back to being friends. It's not the same. I can forgive you, but at the end of the day, I don't actually have to be around you. And I'll even tell you what you did wrong, because we're supposed to approach our brethren with any sin. And, I'll encourage you to come back to the Lord. But, in this walk, I can give you 50 feet because I don't have to be friends with you anymore. Which is a really blessing. It's a blessing because it gives you freedom. And, I think sometimes the reason that we don't want to let go of friends is because we don't want to be alone. But at this point, I have no qualms about being alone because I know I have the Father. I have been praying for a husband, and the Lord said he would grant it to me. So yes, big ups to you, Lord. Because honestly, like, I think this walk would be easier with a husband. Like, a man, he's supposed to be the head. And he's supposed to be the stronger sex. I'm still trying to study that out. But yeah, he's made directly in God's image. We were taken from his rib, so we have God's image too. But the man is really, really, really supposed to be like the head of the woman as a husband type deal. So, he'd be my husband and he'd be my friends. And then when that happens, we can be friends with couples that have the same, goals in mind type deal. So I am friends with some people that are already couples, but sometimes it's awkward because it's like this woman's coming in the picture. Who is she? Is she going to try to get with my husband? So I try to make it known, like, I'm not interested in your husband. I'm a one-man show right now, and that's okay. I don't need any of the extra drama. And I just try to basically just speak for the Lord, and people that are really trying to get with the Lord, they respect that, and they usually keep me as their friends. And then, as far as other things the Lord provides, he provides so much. Like, it'll just be people that come out the woodworks and help me. Just random people. Because at the end of the day, the Lord is a provider, and if we pray for something, he's going to answer that prayer, if it's according to his will. So don't get too crazy. So yeah, I would say my relationships are better after God, just based on how I've changed and how it's kind of funny because it's like I feel like I have less relationships, but they're better. But yeah, I think that's all based on how I've changed and not having an attachment to them, because they're not always going to be there and they're not always good for you, so there's not reason to stay in them. But yeah, I've got my little standards that have to be met. Not saying I won't talk to people. I'll talk to anyone. Believe me, I'll talk to anyone. That's still one thing that's left from my past. I will talk to anyone. But yeah, I just have more peace about it. So anyway, thank you for listening. You guys have a good day and be blessed. Bye.